Mike McCool here. I'm in the Royal Examiner studio, and with me today we have a special guest, John Hutchinson. John is the executive director, let me get this right, the Valley Conservation Organization.
Council. Yes, sir.
Council.
Yeah.
And what they primarily do, well, he's going to tell you what they do, but I thought it was interesting because it's really focused just on the greater Shenandoah Valley, which is in our backyard. So,
yes.
John, tell us what the organization does
Well, we primarily work with landowners who want to preserve their land. Usually we do that through working on conservation easements, which are an agreement for a landowner, between a landowner and a land trust like the Shenandoah Valley Battlefields Foundation to restrict certain land uses, generally restricting subdivision and new construction. To a large extent, and
I guess people want to keep it rural.
People want to keep it rural. We also work on some planning issues with localities like Front Royal in a program we call Better Models for Development that tries to share with local planners and elected officials ways that our communities can grow and still maintain our rural character, overall rural character. So we think that growing in instead of growing out in a sprawling manner is good, and work with landowners outside of the towns and cities that want to protect their land for farming and other rural uses, and work with the towns somewhat on planning issues to help with historic districts and other projects. I saw y'all have a old hotel that's being renovated downtown. I think I drove by it today.
Yep. But hopefully they finally sold it to the developer, and I think that's going to move forward. So
I was looking at.
We've been complaining for 50 years about it, so one day it'll look really nice.
I saw it in the newspaper. I looked at y'all's paper for a little bit this morning, and I saw that issue coming up. But projects, we do want to protect the rural areas, but projects like that take special resources inside of urban areas and take advantage of the history of our communities. We try to help out a little bit with that as well. Yes.
Well, what got me interested was I got a press release from your office, and they were talking about the Shenandoah Park expanding.
Right.
And I thought that was kind of interesting, and John was sharing with me before we went on the air here of how the park is not allowed to buy land or
that's right.
have to be given. So it's kind of part of what you do, and I thought that was interesting, how large the Shenandoah Park is and how it's expanded over the years.
Yes,
share that story with us.
The park, it's actually one of the smaller national parks. It's 180,000 acres now, and it has not grown very much since it was initially created in the late 20s, early 30s. Because it has, of its organic law, it's the law that created it, says that the federal government may not buy land for Shenandoah National Park. They may only acquire it through gift. So the reason we got involved in this recent project that added nearly 1,000 acres to the park is that we had a landowner, being the Shenandoah National Park Trust, another nonprofit group, who had received a grant from the DuPont mitigation funds, where the DuPont plant way down in Waynesboro had put very nasty things in the South River and then came into the South Fork of the Shenandoah and so forth, they had a settlement with the Commonwealth of Virginia and the federal government that said they'd put a certain amount of money into mitigation to make up for the damage that they had done to the river. And $20 million was put out for land acquisition, and the Shenandoah Park Trust got the biggest one of those grants, and to acquire this specific property. There's actually three properties, a big one and two smaller ones. But
So they buy it, then they can give it to the park.
then they can give it to the park. But they were not familiar with land acquisition, even though land trust is in their name. They're not a land trust. And Valley Conservation Council is a land trust. We deal with real estate all the time. And so I got a call from them last summer saying, we have this great project. Will you help us with it? Because we need some help with the real estate parts of it. And my response was, of course, this sounds like a wonderful thing to be able to work on.
Right.
So the park, the Shenandoah National Park Trust was in the process of buying these properties. They eventually closed on them in December, and purchased, the final purchase. And we worked with them through that process, and then they'll have to hold on to that land until the wheels of the Park Service grind and the money comes out for them. Not the money, but they are actually authorized to accept that land from the Shenandoah National Park
Literally
Trust.
take an act of Congress.
I don't know. It won't take an act of Congress, but it might be easier if it did. But in between, the trustees of the DuPont Fund said, well, you have to get a land trust to hold a conservation easement on that property to make sure no monkey business goes on, it's not changed, it's nothing sold off of it, or anything, until we can bring it in, it can be brought into the national park. So that's our primary function, and that's what we do all day long. Is we work with landowners who want to protect their land and don't have any experience with it, and they come to us and they say, "What do we do?" And we sit down with them and we go over the different options that they have. Lots of those options involve conservation easements. And help them figure out what the best plan for their property is and move forward. I don't know how familiar you are, but a lot of people aren't familiar with conservation easements, but
You
they're...
hear that word thrown out a lot.
Yeah, well, they're an agreement between a landowner and a land trust, which is what Valley Conservation Council is, that certain rights that go with a property will be conveyed away from the property so that it can't be developed in an way that's not compatible with conservation. So generally that involves transferring the development rights. You have so many division rights to your property, depending on what the zoning is and all that. So you agree in a document that you won't subdivide it, or you'll only subdivide it a certain number of times. You'll only build a certain number of houses on it, or no houses at all. And this, that, and the other. You might reserve the ability to build some farm buildings if that's what you foresee as what you're going to do. And that agreement is recorded in the courthouse, just like the deed to your property is. It's a deed, and it is perpetual. It goes
on and on. It's tied to the property.
It's tied to the property, and so you may die, and your property may go to your children, or you may sell your land, or what have you. The easement stays with the land. Now, with the Shenandoah National Park project, that easement goes away because the federal government won't accept land that's encumbered by another party.
Right.
So it's whenever the feds take that land, our easement will go away. But generally speaking, that's what we do. We've done a fair amount of work in Warren County. We're based in Stanton, so we've been more active down in the southern or central valley. But we did an easement with your Conservation Easement Authority several years ago, a landowner whose name I didn't look up before I came today. There was a landowner who wanted to work with the county to put their land under easement. and they needed some grant writing in the process. So this was before I came to VCC, or I'd know more about it, but we helped by writing a grant proposal to a grant fund from the Commonwealth so that the landowner could get paid a little bit for their conservation easement, and then the county holds the easement through their conservation easement authority. We just, at the end of the year, closed on an easement that we're very happy with, working with the Hutman family, who are down on the west bank of the river, down just south of Bentonville, that area, and their property backs up to the National Forest on the west, and the Shenandoah River just north of the state park to the east, I believe north. My geography's not great over here, but they put 23 acres into a conservation easement there, and they have all sorts of things going on there that some of the other groups who do this couldn't figure out how to accommodate, but they have a little campground on their property where they have cabins that they rent out to people. So they have some commercial uses. They do poultry.
They have
they have two big poultry houses, and they reserve the right to build another if they need to. But they're people who make a living off their land.
Right.
So we work with them. It's not a simple document in that case. It's got some bells and whistles, but we work with them until we figured out how they could continue to work their land and make a living off of it, and also ensure that the conservation values, so to speak, the things that are important about it conservation-wise, that those would be preserved in perpetuity. And we think we came out with a pretty good agreement.
So if someone is interested in conserving their property, you're the guy to go to.
I am the guy to go to. I am not alone. We have a staff of 5 now, but if you look for Valley Conservation Council on the internet, valleyconservationcouncil.com is our website.
.org on your card here.
.org, yeah, .org, gosh, yeah.
Well, you'll find them.
Yes, if you look for us on the internet, you'll find us. I'm from Stanton, grew up there, and born and raised there. Didn't make it very far. I live a mile from where I was born, but
you're an easement guy. You want to stay close to
I would stay close to the land, I had been in Warren County. I worked in land conservation in the Shenandoah Valley for 30 years. I worked for a group called the Shenandoah Valley Battlefields Foundation for the last 20 years until the beginning of this year. So I spent a lot of time between Newmarket and Frederick, and in the very northern tip of Warren County.
Right.
Cedar Creek Battlefield trickles over there, and we protected a couple of 3,000 acres in Warren County up there.
A couple years ago, okay.
But I wasn't familiar with the southern part of Warren County very much until recently, and you all really have some incredible open space here, some incredible places that are truly worthy. I mean, I think of the Page Valley as sort of what the Shenandoah Valley would be like if we didn't have Interstate 81. Of course, nobody'd be able to live there because nobody'd have a job. Right. But you all's development has taken such a different track than the main Shenandoah Valley has since Interstate, and it seems like a really special place.
Well, it takes a lot of work in Warren County because we're divided by railroad, highways, and rivers. And so everything is chopped up there. And so I think there's a lot of people that are just trying to keep what they've got and keep it intact. Especially, like I said, we have a lot of rural land to the south, a lot of farms. It's amazing when you drive around the amount of farms
Oh, yeah.
in our small county. We're one of the smallest counties. But
Right.
We've got a lot of...
Well, we did some mapping work recently for our 30th anniversary was 2020, and we did some mapping work to see just how much land had been protected in our service area, and we found that 183,000 acres of private land had been protected under conservation easement since we were founded in 1990. Now, we didn't do all that by any means.
Sure.
We did some of it and did help with partners on a lot of it. But that's more than a Warren County
Right.
that we protected together,
A lot,
the land conservation community.
That's just in the Shenandoah
That's
Valley?
just in the 11 counties that is our service area, from Botetourt to Frederick and over in the Page Valley and a little bit of the Allegheny Highlands.
Well, John, it sounds like you guys are doing a lot of work down there in Stanton.
We are, and we're trying to do more work in the Page Valley as well. As I said, we work with the Hutland family. I know they don't mind my telling people that we did that, but we're working with another family on a property in Page that is about southwest of Blue Ray. That's another 180-acre property that's mostly cropland that should go under easement here in the next month or so. We did this project for Shenandoah National Park. We really want to try to fill our service area to a larger extent. We want people to know us over
Sure.
here.
Well, we hope we can do our part and get the message out. So if you have land you want to conserve, keep it in an easement, we know who to call. So,
Yes, yes.
Well, we'll put your website and your information in the story so people can go there and take a
Okay.
look at your website, and maybe you'll get a few phone calls.
That would be
coming up.
great. We
Right.
we look forward to making new friends in Warren and Page County.
Well,
So
we appreciate
yeah.
that. Again, John, thanks so much for coming in and
Yeah.
talking to us. And we'll maybe touch base. These new projects come along, we'll touch base again in the near
Well,
future.
we'll press release you when they do.
There you go. I
It worked the
appreciate it.
first time, so we'll do it again.
All right, thanks again, John.
Yes, sir. Thank you.